Okay. Pause. Yep. Recording. We're now live.
In exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate, that may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained, and where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with the Council's governance rules. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jar Jar Wurrung, Eastern Maar, Watchabollock, Jardwa, Jardwa Jali, Wirragai and Jabbergulk nations whose lands and waters the Pyrenees Shire operates on. We pay our respects to their ancestors and elders and recognise and respect their customs, stewardship and continuing connection to country. There's no apologies noted. Officers or councillors, any notice of disclosure of interest in any items tonight?
I disclose an interest in a confidential item, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Confirmation of the previous minutes. The minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 20th of April 26 and the closed meeting for the Council held on the 20th of April 26 as previously circulated to Council be confirmed. Can I have someone move that, please? Move Councillor Phelan, seconded Councillor Keogh. All those in favour? Thank you. There was no business arising or no items taken on notice from the previous meeting held on the 20th of April 2026. Public participation. Members of the community are encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online through Council's website, by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the Chair during public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. 30 minutes is allowed for the total period of public participation. Time extensions may be allowed at the discretion of the chair, subject to the provisions of the governance rules. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting. The chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. The chair, councillor or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. And I have one question that's been submitted by Mr. Trevor Davey of Waterloo. Thank you, Mr. Davey. The question is, when council complete training for employees, management, executives, etc., I understand they require an RTO, authorised training course and instructor, who must also be qualified within Victorian government compliance. If so, would this extend to outside trainers and training courses that may or could be delivered to Pyrenees community or businesses? Mr. Nolan, I think you're going to respond to that one.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Davey, again for your question. It's a good question. Certainly, the council does have an obligation to provide a range of training to its employees. That training, it's quite a diverse range of training, not just to employees, but to councillors and council executives. So the answer to the first part of your question is that it depends. Not all of the training necessarily requires a qualified person within the Victorian Government Compliance Network. It depends on what outcome is to be achieved. So if there's a requirement to provide training for our outdoor staff who provide traffic controller training on the job, they require a certificate to be able to undertake that work, then we would require an accredited trainer to be able to do that work. Today, the council engaged a person by the name of Bonnie Chu to provide cultural awareness training for the councillors. And so Bonnie Chu is engaged as a proud Wadawurrung woman to be able to provide those insights around cultural awareness that were necessary for the councillors. And it wasn't necessarily part of the Victorian certified sketch. She was there as a Wadawurrung woman. So it's not always the case. However, your substantive question is that would this extend to outside trainers and training courses that may or could be delivered to Pyrenees community or businesses? So in other words, could those trainers that we engage be able to provide that training to other businesses and community members to participate in? And the answer is there are circumstances where that could occur. More often than not, the training is provided because of our obligations to our own staff. I can see situations where there may be opportunity for that to occur, and I'd be open to have a conversation about where that might land. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Thank you, Mr. David, for the question. Is there any questions from the gallery?
No.
Mr. David, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on from my first question, I have a concern that if there's no RTO or registered Cert 4 trainer giving a training course and an employee of the council does that course and in doing so later has an error, accident or problem and that trainer wasn't qualified, what happens to the litigation? Thank you.
Mr. Noel.
Okay, thanks for the follow-up question, Mr. David. It helps provide some context to your earlier question.
Yeah.
And again, my comment is it depends. It depends on the type of training that's being provided and whether, in fact, there's a statutory requirement for an approved certificate to be obtained. Obviously, sort of, the nature of training, the nature of the risk, is relevant here as well. So look, there's not an exact answer to your question. It's something that we need to be mindful of, but it depends on the nature of the training.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Thank you again, Mr. Davey. Would you like to ask a question to the council?
No.
Feel free if you wish.
Something?
Oh, yes, sorry. I
Yep.
have.
Yeah. If you just come to the microphone, it's on. Thank you. And just state your name and your town, township that you're from, please.
Okay, my name is Jenny Hill. I'm from Beaufort, 15 Willoughby Street. I found myself this morning at 9 a.m. submitting this formal objection. So if I may read that to you to just give you an outline of what the reason for why I stand here before you today. So greetings to you, Mayor Damien Ferrari. Greetings to you, Jim Nolan, CEO, fellow councillors, and to Douglas Gowan. Have I covered you all, I think, and Chantel. Okay, sorry. This morning, I'll just read this word for word if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So, reformal objection and notice of unreasonable access obstruction to our property, 15 Willoughby Street, Beaufort, Victoria. I'm writing to formally object to the current execution of the major sewer works being conducted by your nominated contractor on Willoughby Street, which is currently resulting in the total, permanent obstruction of access to our property at the above address. When I say permanent, I mean permanent for whilst the works take place. While we understand the necessity of the infrastructure project, the management of these works has created an untenable and unsafe situation for the occupants of our property. I refer to the phone call we received of notice for the first time at 3:44 p.m. Friday, the 15th of May, what I refer to as the 11th hour, you could say, from Tim Day informing us that our exit entrance will be blocked permanently for a week due to a late change of plan from the contractor and that a stationary truck 6 to 7 metres long housing the power plant will be parked there and blocking our entrance in and out of the property. I believe this is an unreasonable placement of power plant that interferes with the access to our property. I also spoke to Rob, the contractor supervisor, who I questioned how long would our entrance be blocked. He indicated the works could go from 2 weeks to 3. I note, if a council or its contractor's station power plant truck parks across your primary entrance, they are legally required to provide safe, usable and practical alternative access to our home. Blocking all entry unreasonably can be deemed unlawful interference. Our objection is based on the following critical impacts: the safety and emergency access. The blocked access to our driveway prevents safe entry and exit in the event of a medical emergency for ambulance or fire CFA services. These services would be unable to reach our property, presenting an immediate and unacceptable risk to life. We strongly request that council and the project contractors take immediate action to rectify this situation. 2, disruption of essential services. Blocked access creates an unacceptable risk to our safety and daily essential needs. I note, Tony, my partner, recent accident, just Wednesday gone on the 14th of May. He incurred a serious injury while operating the chainsaw in our front garden. He will require doctor and specialist appointments with or without notice in these following weeks and months. One of these appointments is with the surgeon again in Geelong for Friday, this coming Friday, the 22nd of May. It is paramount that we have access to and from our property and for the ambulance services should they be required. I note he has already had surgery. We have spent 2 nights in Geelong arriving back here Friday, late Friday, only to be advised that we are going to have blocked access. And I also might point out, between Doug, Tim Day and myself today at 11 a.m, the meeting we held, this access could even go above 3 weeks, not the 1 week that Tim Day stipulated that we would have blocked access. And 3 weeks might even run into 4 for unforeseen events that may occur through the construction and implementation of this sewer. The right to notice and consultation, we did not receive any written notice. And really we should have received either 7 or 14 days written notification. We request an urgent review with the council and contract site supervisor to provide an immediate written traffic management plan showing how they will restore safe access to our property. We ask that you contact us immediately to discuss in person how this access restriction will be resolved. Yours sincerely, Jenny Hill and Tony Van Roven. And Tony is absent due to the accident and he is finding it very difficult. Yeah. I might say that in Victoria, if a council blocks access to your property for major sewer construction, you are entitled to proper legal notice, safe alternative access, and compensation for financial loss. You may also challenge unreasonable placement of temporary power plants that unnecessarily interfere with your livelihood. Your exact rights depend on the specific legislation governing the works, such as the Local Government Act or the Major Transport Project Facilitation Act, but the following core rights and actions apply. And those rights are the right to notice and consultation with advance warning, reasonable interference, the right to alternative access if a council or its contractors station power plant trucks across your primary entrance. They are legally required to provide safe, usable and practical alternative access to your home or business. Blocking all entry unreasonably can be deemed unlawful interference. The outcome of our meeting today is that Doug has offered, and I might point out clearly, a sweetener does not take away the fact that you've taken away our rights to access our property. So I am not on board with this yet. The sweetener today was that Doug has offered originally a fleet car, or perhaps we should go through all the options, your compound lock-up yard for my car, and I said an outright no. Then it was going to be the mobile bus shed. I said an outright no, because I am not going to walk in different climate as we're going into winter, and I'm not going to cart what I need with groceries, etc., from that point to my home, which I rightfully should have access to. What we arrived at was possibly a fleet car, but the fleet car then went to a hire car. I have spoken with Dolphina from the medical centre, and Dolphina has accepted that we could park the fleet car in the medical centre. However, that presents its problems too, because that's not a quick exit for me. I would be given a remote to exit, but it's not going to be as sweet as that either. It's not like driving up your driveway to the back door, and when you have someone who's injured that you are now dressing, showering, cutting up food for, it doesn't fit. And to be honest, I find it most unacceptable, and I won't accept it. I'll continue. And I've already said that even if you do park that truck, then that will go to another stage and another stage, because I won't give up for our rights. I think I've probably made it very clear. I probably could go on, but I don't know what else to say. I just want to say perhaps, have empathy and put yourself in the same position. And, oh, no, actually, I could say more. So with the power plant trucks, now I say trucks plural, originally it was singular, but there are going to be 2 trucks parked at the end of our driveway. One has the power plant set up on it. The second one will have the slurry, the deluge that comes out, and that will be obviously taking away all the rubbish. I don't know why those 2 trucks can't be moved over further over so that we can have access in and out of our property. I don't know why you haven't utilised that vacant block, which belongs to Deca, which is directly opposite us. I have spoken to Central Highlands Water, but I need to resume that call because I was told that it was Central Highlands Water's equipment that's coming in. But I need to resume that call for further outcomes as well. So, what else can I say? Please consider that we need access to our property in and out so that I can drive to the back door as we have done for the last 12 years. And as ratepayers and a resident in this shire, I urge you to consider very carefully what you're doing, because 4 weeks, and I say 4 weeks because I believe it's going to take 4. It's already taken 3 down here. We have a longer distance to go in our block, and anything could present as an issue that may put things back on as far as your end date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You presented that very, very well.
Oh,
Very
have
well
I?
done.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
you did. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that at this time, or will you take that on notice, or?
Only to say that we'll continue to work with Ms Hill and her partner to find as acceptable solution as we can and to minimise any access issues. And yeah, we're working through those issues and yeah, we're really committed to getting the best outcomes we can. But this work is essential. It is an essential service that's required, and yeah, we have to facilitate this work with the least impacts possible. But we understand that there are impacts, and we'll continue to work for an acceptable solution.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns.
Sorry, my
Councillor Kerr,
just one clarification. I think there was a good statement made there. Is there an option to utilise that vacant block, especially if it's going to take that time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor, for your question. So council doesn't have access rights to that block. We can approach DECA for access rights. However, the issue is the alignment of the sewer. The alignment of the sewer is on the southern side of Willoughby Street, and the issue is if we do put the 2 trucks that we're talking about on that land, effectively that will create a block for the entire road at that point. We'll still try to maintain access, but there may be a blockage of Willoughby Street at that point. But I know that the project manager is looking at options where we can potentially have that power point as distant from 15 Willoughby Street as possible. But we're a little bit constrained by where the design pits for this particular sewer work.
Yes.
May I respond?
Yes,
As well?
please do.
Thank you. When Tim visited late this afternoon and we took a little walk out to the front to see where the pit is and so forth, Tim, I didn't realise that you're going to run 2-way traffic. Which really surprised me because I thought we were talking about 1 lane. So I said to Tim, well, why can't you move those trucks over, make it a 1-way traffic in and out so we have access to our property, rightfully so. So I do really emphasise I will not accept that we may minimise the interruptions to 15 Willoughby, I will only accept that we have access to 15 Willoughby Street rightfully as residents, ratepayers, and to do the right thing. I mean, this management has gone skew-web. I often wonder how I could arrive at the situation that we're in now.
Thank
I don't
you.
know what else to say. Sorry,
that's
I
good.
feel really.
You've presented
Yeah.
it very well,
Thank
Ms. Hill.
you,
Thank you
Damien.
very well. And is any of the other councillors wish to clarify anything? Because it was a fairly substantial
Was it?
presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify. So there's only one entrance to your
Yes.
property, yep. And then in that case, to me, it's not acceptable either. There's got to be a way to get into your property.
That's, excuse me, absolutely not, because if in the event of fire, Doug did say today, you have 70-metre long fire hoses. I'm sorry, that's not an option. That's not acceptable either. We need to have access to ambulance, first of all, and that is a high likability. Secondly, to emergency services that need access to our property. We are side by side with a shop front, the tobacconist, across the road. We are also on the back of an empty bakery property, and there are other shops around, so anything is likely.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor
Yes,
Charles?
through you, Mr. Mayor. I find it a bit appalling that we've notified you at 3 o'clock on
3:44 p.m.
3:44 on Friday afternoon. I mean, if this project has been
It was almost like
properly
an
planned
order,
and managed, I agree, it's unacceptable.
and we just arrived home
Absolutely unacceptable.
and we just arrived home from
It's not as
Geelong.
if we just decided we're going to dig that bit of road up. And I think we need to manage it and we need to fix the problem immediately. Sorry, Mr. Gath, but I think it needs to be
Thank you.
sorted
Tom.
out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Gowns?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to address a couple of things. Notification of all residents actually has occurred well before last Friday. There was a particular change with this particular issue, but in terms of access issues, there have been 3 notifications well before this time. I just want to clarify that. And there is actually access at all times to this property. I'm not saying there's driveway access, but there is access. That's for emergency services and a whole range of other requirements. The front of this property is not actually blocked from access. It's the driveway that is blocked to road access.
So may I say, a CFA, an ambulance, essential person, any essential person is going to stand there like any pedestrian walking past holding a hose. How are they going to bring in the ambulance? That's just absolutely ridiculous stuff. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We've
Yes, I
you've
better
presented
sit
a
down.
really good. You presented really well and very thorough. And it's certainly something that we'll have quite a in-depth discussion about to try and make the best resolution in the quickest manner and get your access that you need.
Sorry, Damien, there's one more thing to add to this. This is all occurring Wednesday. We only have tomorrow to resolve this issue. The equipment moves in Wednesday, they start their work. We were notified Friday afternoon.
I'm sure there'll be some, I'm confident there'll be some robust discussion.
So instead
Later
of
on this
spending
evening.
my weekend and focus on my dear Tony, I had to research and write up this submission. Here I am tonight, and I should be at home with my husband. Here I am fighting for our rights to access to our property. There's something terribly wrong.
Thank you. You've done a great job and we've heard you loud and clear.
Thank you.
And we'll have some no doubt, some quite in-depth discussion later on this evening, considering time's a factor.
Thank you, Damien.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for your presentation. Takes us to item 9, asset and developed services, 9.1.1. Councillors, I'll take that as you've read that item, and the recommendation is that council notes this report. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Wardlaw, seconder. Councillor Keogh, all those in favour? Thank you. Takes us to 9.2.1, the audit and risk committee, March 26 meeting. Take that as read. Office a recommendation that council receives and notes the information contained within this report and its attachments. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Phelan, second to Councillor Wardlaw, all those in favour? Thank you. Councillor activity reports, 10.1. I'll take those as read. Is there any alterations that anyone would like to make to those before we vote? No, all good. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Toll, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.1, Assembly of Councillors, April 2026. I'll take that as read, councillors. The recommendation there is that council notes this report. Can I have someone to move this, please? Councillor Toll, seconded. Councillor Keogh, all those in favour? Thank you. This brings us to item 12.1, economic development and tourism. Mr. Nolan, I think you're presenting on this one.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval to place the draft 2026 Economic Development and Investment Attraction Strategy on public exhibition for a period of 3 weeks to seek community feedback. The council previously or recently adopted a council plan, and one of the key pillars of that plan relates to the economy. One of the elements of that pillar seeks a coordinated and facilitated planning for fostering business and tourism growth. And one of the initiatives under that part of the council plan is to develop an investment attraction and economic development strategy. John Stevens from Jench McLean Carson was engaged by council to undertake this work, which involved multiple stages, including a desktop research, consultation with industry, which included an economic task force comprising members of the community and the business community in particular, and then the development of a draft strategy which has subsequently been refined to reflect feedback from council and members of the task force. The strategy itself, councillors, has a number of key themes. It's a comprehensive document. The themes relate to agriculture and agribusiness, population housing development and development enablement, tourism, local value adding, workforce, and an item that talks to how the strategic themes work together. It also includes an implementation and action plan based around those key themes. So, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to present that to council in draft format and to seek that it be supported by council to place the document on exhibition. The consultant, Mr. Gibbons, has presented council on 2 occasions on the plan, and council has had an input into that as well. So the recommendation is that council places the draft 2026 Economic Development and Investment Attraction Strategy on public exhibition for a period of 3 weeks. The council incorporates any changes necessary to the strategy in response to feedback from the public and presents the strategy for endorsement by council once the final changes have been made in response to community feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Council's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Moved, Councillor Wardlaw. Would someone like to second it? Councillor Keogh, would you like to speak on that, Councillor Wardlaw? Any councillors wish to speak on that? Councillor Phelan?
I don't think this constitutes any sort of alternative recommendation, but it would be good to review some of the statements in the strategy and some of the data. I note that the report says employment increased from 2001 to 2,219 jobs in the report. And it lists that as an 18% increase in employment, which I think it's closer to 12%. So just to check those figures. Also, there's in the strategy, there is reference from one set of figures being drawn from the ABS and another set of figures being drawn from Pyrenees Plan data. Just to clarify, what timeframes exactly? Is it over a 3-year period or a 4-year period? Because it will depend on the month and the timing, so that people can understand the growth or not in different areas that are covered. And what else? Oh, I thought it could also be helpful. I don't know if we have this anywhere else, but just to give some comparative data for the state. So if we're looking at our growth, what's the average growth in jobs, in economic output statewide? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Very good points you've made, and if we can get those checks made and amendments prior to the...
Yes, Mr Mayor, certainly happy to take on board those comments, and of course this is a draft document, so the purpose of the draft is to put it out there to see if there's something that's missing, something that needs to be corrected, and each of those issues are things that absolutely can be taken on board and be checked and improved if needed. No problem.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? No, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. 12.1.2 Central Highlands Resilient Agricultural Project. Again, Mr Nolan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Council with the findings and recommendations of the Central Highlands Resilient Agriculture Report. The Council would recall that in November 2024, Council moved a motion and resolved to undertake a detailed study on agricultural options for the region, giving consideration to the natural and built assets and those affecting the agricultural sector, including drought, climate change, and options for value-added agriculture. Summarise the outcomes of prior studies and investigate any gaps and opportunities for diversification of agriculture value add to regional produce, and identify what steps are necessary to facilitate the investment required to capitalise on these opportunities. So that was a resolution of the Council in November 2024, Mr Mayor. Since that time, our communities have been in drought, and fortunately, in terms of the timing, the Commonwealth Government provided a future drought fund, and Agriculture Victoria were engaged to implement a series of actions in response to the objectives of the Central Highlands Regional Drought Resilience Plan. Commerce Ballarat were appointed by the Victorian Government to deliver a series of actions in response to that resilience plan. And there were 5 project proposals that were brought forward. Pyrenees Shire Council initiated one of those proposals, which was in response to the Council's resolution in 2024, and sought that a resilient agriculture report be prepared. That was agreed to by the parties, and the Centre for E-Research and Digital Innovation at Federation University was engaged to undertake this piece of research work. And this piece of work involved a desktop review, consultation, and an action plan being prepared. And essentially, the executive summary of this piece of work that's just been completed states that just so that it is consistent with the council resolution, it states that the Resilient Agriculture Project delivers a study on agricultural options for the Central Highlands region of Victoria. The project examines the issues affecting the agriculture sector, including drought, climate change, and options for value-added agriculture, summarising outcomes from prior studies and investigating gaps and opportunities for emerging industry diversification. So it's pleasing, Mr. Mayor, that the council's request for work to be done in this area has been accepted and acknowledged by Agriculture Victoria and by the Federation University and Commerce Ballarat. And it's fortunate this work is able to be funded through that Commonwealth Fund that I mentioned. And why is it important for agriculture? It is, and it's interesting that this follows the economic development strategy, where effectively of the total economic output in our Shire, 37% of that output is from the agriculture sector. And of the total jobs within the Shire, 29% of those jobs are within the agriculture sector. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll present to you the Central Highlands Resilient Agriculture Project in the context of that background. And the recommendation is that Council notes the report and that Council endorses the recommendations in the above mentioned report, in particular where these align with the objectives of the economic development strategy, and that Council collaborates with regional organisations such as the Central Highlands Regional Partnership, Grampians RDA, GBAC, to implement actions which respond to the recommendations of regional importance. And Mr. Mayor, there are 7 of those recommendations within the report, and I won't go through those in detail. Many of those are of value and interest to anyone that's in the agriculture sector. So it is a piece of work that would be of value for people that are working within the sector, and also a document that will assist in guiding our own economic strategy. So I'll present those recommendations for your consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Councillors have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Move Councillor Kerr, second to Councillor Toll. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak on that?
I do. I think this is incredibly important. We know how much of the sector of our industry sector that agriculture takes up, and I think just a couple of areas to point out in those recommendations: the security of regional water. That security is very important in the lead up to the elections, but all those other areas, taking that leadership and having a long-term approach as excuse me, for our agricultural businesses that also support our regional areas and support our whole entire communities because of our reliance on that. It's incredibly important, and we thank the effort that's already gone into this, but we need to make sure that we're really pivotal in making sure this is as successful as it should be in supporting our agricultural sector. Thank you.
Councillor Kerr, Councillor Toll, do you wish to speak on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned last week when this was tabled in the briefing, I would have liked to have seen a bit more involvement from our agricultural sector rather than academics from the university. They've presented some great stuff, but I think Council's number one role is to provide our farmers with roads and bridges, and let's not lose sight of that. We rather than recommending what crops they grow and this, that and the other, we can help them with that, but let's provide them access to and from their properties. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Phelan?
Yeah, and through you. I note that similar to Councillor Keogh, the importance of water security, and if I understand correctly, the Wimmera and Northwest Pipeline project is no longer being looked at this point in time. Is that correct, Mr. Moore?
Maybe to answer that question.
Yeah.
No, certainly that's not the case, Councillor Phelan. It's a priority project for council. The project has just come to the conclusion of the of this phase of the project, which was to prepare a feasibility study and a business case for a rural pipeline servicing a large area in the northern part of Pyrenees, as well as areas within Central Goldfields Council and Northern Grampians Council. So the project is very much alive, and there was certainly a strong business case for it to proceed. The next steps of the project require an investment of approximately $5 million to make the project shovel ready, right? And that requires geotechnical work, native vegetation, cultural heritage, and detailed design work to do that work essentially to be able to complete the business and refine the business case and to de-risk the project. And then having completed that stage of the work, then there is a case to argue for the infrastructure funding. And at this point in time, the initial investment that's needed for the infrastructure is around $160 million to be shared between state, Commonwealth, and at a local level with Water Authority. I just reinforce the fact that both the Central Highlands Water and GWM Water are very much behind this project and supported it all the way. Where there has been a change is recently with the announcement under the when the federal budget was delivered, that there were some comments made in respect of the National Water Grid Fund, which was identified as a possible source of funding for the $5 million to do the detailed design work. Now, in the absence of access to that fund, Council will certainly be looking to work with the Victorian government to try and find a source for that, for those funds. There's no way we're giving up on this project at this point in time, given the work that's been committed. And bear in mind that the Victorian government provided $300,000 towards the feasibility study. I don't believe the Victorian government, or it's in the Victorian government, as interest to give up on the project at this stage. There's a strong business case for it. It's essential for our agricultural community in the northern part of our shire to, and as presented in this report, that water security is vital for that sector in the northern part of our shire as much as anywhere. And so we'll continue to advocate for that. But thank you for your question.
Any other councillors wish to speak? No. It's a really good point, and it's a good start, and I think there's some really good points being made by council, especially about the water. We know it's vital everywhere, but especially out in the rural areas. And as Mr. Nolan alluded to last week, myself, the Deputy Mayor, and Mr. Nolan went to Melbourne and advocated directly to some ministers in relation to some vital water pipelines that we just need, and we need continued funding to make sure that they continue to progress through, especially the north of our shire. It's really, really vital that water is just such a vital thing. And I think Councillor Toll makes a good point about roads, bridges and infrastructure. Let's concentrate on what the council's got control over to assist the farmers to get their produce to market and move about the shire on the road networks without the restrictions. And of course, if we do those things, it doesn't just help the farmers, it helps every resident in the shire. So we'll continue to make sure that we make improvements to those roads, bridges and infrastructure to assist the farmers. Councillors, you have a recommendation? All those in favour? Thank you. That brings us to 12.2.1, the draft Pyrenees Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029. Mr. Gowans, I think this is with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the draft Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029 for the purpose of public exhibition and community consultation. The review assessed all existing actions in the current domestic animal plan and retains relevant and achievable actions and removes that are not feasible. removes those that are not feasible. The draft DAMP adopts a practical and resource-conscious approach with a focus on responsible pet ownership, public safety and nuisance reduction, animal welfare outcomes, and effective compliance and enforcement. There are some key challenges in animal management, and some of these key challenges are identified in the plan, which include declining registration numbers of dogs and cats, feral and semi-owned cat population, keeping that in control, dog attacks on livestock and animals, and nuisance complaints, which include barking dogs and roaming animals. Some of the key actions in the plan and priorities to address these challenges include increased registration and identification compliance, reduce overpopulation, especially cats, by increasing desexing and microchipping initiatives, minimise dog attacks and nuisance behaviour with improved management of complaints and enhancement of dog attack prevention and investigation processes, improvement of education and responsible pet ownership campaigns, and strengthening enforcement and compliance activities. It is recommended that the consultation for the draft DMP be undertaken via public exhibition, and there are a number of consultation activities planned, including some drop-in sessions at both at Navoka resource centres, social media posts, some presence at community markets, also via our social media and public notices. The Domestic Animal Management Plan provides a practical framework to support responsible pet ownership, community safety, animal welfare, and effective compliance within the available council resources. It is recommended that council endorse the draft plan for public exhibition and community consultation to seek community feedback prior to final adoption, and that reflects the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Councillors have got a recommendation there. Anyone like to move that? Move, Councillor Woodlawson. You've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Would anyone like to speak on that matter? I do have one question, Mr. Gowns. I think in the past we have had a subsidised desexing program for cats, I think it was. Do we know any information about that? Is that likely to occur again, considering the cost it is to have an animal, especially a cat, desexed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your question. Yeah, council has had a number of initiatives in the past, and we would continue to if funding opportunities arise, and there are funding opportunities. We haven't always had the greatest take up, and we'll look at ways that we can make sure that if we are to do such a program, that it's well advertised and potentially broader than it may have been in the past. I think you may be aware that we have had programs, but they've only been really available for particular cohorts of our community. So it'd be great if we could get some funding that provides a bit more availability to a broader audience.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Yeah, look, I just ask that we please keep our eye out for any of those funding opportunities, and again, if we can make application for funding, and if we can come up with some realistic ways that we can get people to on the uptake of take up these opportunities, that will assist everybody, I think. So really, really good. Yeah, thanks
for you. Just continuing on from what we were just saying there, I think though logistically having a van for one day a year doesn't really work, because not everyone's cats are the right age to be done. So it kind of needs to be more along the lines of vouchers to a vet practice or something like that. So maybe that's something we need to look into moving forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, and happy to take on that suggestion. I think it's a really good one, yeah, I think we need to be broader in how we approach these things, because not everyone's available on one day of the year, and not everyone gets a cat at a certain time as well. So you're absolutely right. We need to look at programs that can provide broader opportunities.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really great idea, Councillor Wardlaw. I think we haven't had the uptake in the past, so we need to think outside the square and perhaps change the way we do business. So those practical solutions, is what we really need to come with. So thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. 12.2.2, the 2026-27 black spot funding for the Yurrumbine Streatham Road and Mount William Road intersection at Stoneleigh. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council's support for an increase in the federal black spot funding for the intersection of the Yurrumbine Streatham Road and Mount William Road. This would enable a roundabout to be constructed instead of the recently announced offset T intersection. Additionally, this report seeks consideration of financial liability beyond the maximum $3 million black spot funding cap. Within the report, there's a bit of history relating to this intersection, and I think we're all aware of the triple fatality that occurred at this intersection and the impact that that has had on the community. And we're very conscious of that and want to do everything we can to avoid similar accidents happening in the future. And our understanding is there has been a history of accidents at this location as well. Council heard directly from the community following the triple fatality about some immediate needs at that intersection, and some of those immediate responses have been put in place. That included improved line marking, reduced speed approaches to the intersection, advanced warning. However, these things are improvements, but they're not the ultimate solution. At the time, prior to the accident, council had put an application in for a black spot funding to have an offset T, which meant that effectively the alignment of the intersection on the Mount William Road would be offset to one another, because there's a see-through issue at that intersection where people approaching from the Mount William Road intersection don't necessarily have a sense of the crossroad that they're approaching. This is actually quite a recognised and good solution. However, unfortunately, the way black spot funding works is that for more events that occur at that, it changes the ability to get a better solution. And even though the offset T intersection, which has been announced and it's a great solution, there is a better solution for that particular intersection, which would be a roundabout at a slower speed. There's a slower approach speed. It also has some improvements in the through traffic issues and the issues with approaching vehicles all doing the same speed rather than one particular alignment having a higher speed, and the approach vehicles, especially thinking about long trucks approaching the intersection, which would be coming out at effectively a very low speed into a higher speed environment. These things all should be taken into account, but we do understand that the cost of a roundabout would maximise the black spot funding that's available. There is engineering work that goes into what betterment you effectively get from different types of solutions. And a roundabout is the preferred option due to it providing a higher crash reduction factor than a staggered T intersection. We're also very aware that these two roads have high strategic value. The Yurrumbine Streatham Road being a major strategic truck route around Ballarat onto the Western Highway. And there also is a key grain storage facility at this location. So there's a lot of truck use on these roads. The concept design of the roundabout is similar to the roundabout design at the intersection of the Glenelg Highway and Yurrumbine Streatham Road. There were some concerns raised by the Federal Black Spot and DTP representatives on the estimated $3 million cost that are believed to be managed at this stage with internal resource management, careful program staging, and smart traffic management to reduce construction impacts and costs. However, if council were to support this higher improvement, council would need to be aware of the financial liabilities that come with any over expenditure above the maximum cap. However, I conclude by saying that safety of road users is a really high priority for council, and the implementation of proposed improvements at the Eurambeen-Streatham Road and Mount William Road intersection will assist in preventing future serious incidents at this location. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that council supports the improved safety outcome for a roundabout to be constructed and funded by the federal black spot funding for $3 million instead of the staggered T intersection, and that council commits to funding any financial amount beyond the maximum $3 million federal black spot funding cap, utilising federal roads to recovery program, while also seeking support from Ararat Rural City.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Councillors, you've got a recommendation there. Move, Councillor.
May I move an adjusted recommendation, please? So it would be the same. Item 1 would be the same, but if we can just add to that point 1, if required at the end, if that's can be added, and then number 2 as is. Number 3, may I add that?
Sorry, yes.
Council.
I should move the motion and then you ask.
Yeah, and then I'll get a second, sorry. Council works with the community to ensure members are kept up to date with project information and progress. Now, may I ask for a seconder?
So it's seconded by Councillor Toll.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
Now,
wish
may
to
I
speak to it? Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I made those few adjustments. And thank you, Mr. Gowns, because this is an incredibly important area that we need to work on. And we already know it got to the point where we had the terrible, horrific fatality last year. This has been ongoing for about 10 years and the officers and yourself, Mr. Gowns, has worked really hard even before we had the fatality, knowing that this was a great black spot. And there's many locals around that area that have known it has been one. It was terrific to get that funding secured for the Alter T intersection. But also, if a roundabout is the better option, then we do definitely want to move on that. However, there are 2 schools of thought from locals, and I just wanted to be able to represent them here tonight as well, particularly locals that live right near there. Again, an Alter T intersection would provide that the line of sight issue would correct that. It would also cause trucks to come to a full stop, which we know would be very advantageous, at least from the Mount William Road approach. However, a roundabout can also provide safer across all those entries to that intersection. So completely understand that too. However, the 2 schools of thoughts, even with the Glenelg one, which is one we can look at as a precedent, some farmers, well, more so truck drivers have felt, can they get that turnaround safely? Some of them have said, we're worried, is there going to be a turnover? And we know that the design would have to take into account all those aspects, and also the impact on being able to manoeuvre farm machinery around that as well. But there's also been the school of thought that has actually been brilliant, that roundabout, and created a lot safer access for farmers, and that being a high cropping area and people at particular times of the year. So definitely hear from both sides. But I added that if required because, and I know you've already stated in the report that we will be looking at the preliminary investigation work, that we do take that into account. And on that, I know we have to jump when the funding is there, hence why timeframes are short, but that we do still consider working with the community and updating them, particularly people who will be most greatly impacted. Something has to happen. Everyone's very much in agreement, but we want to make sure we get the best one, particularly when we'll be spending and asking for a great deal of money for that. But we do need to have the best, safest option made possible. So that's why I just wanted to add those extra points to that. But I do appreciate all the explanation you had there, but did want to highlight some locals have thought a T intersection was a better option. Others do believe a roundabout is a better option, but we just want to make sure that we bring the community along with that. Particularly too, I just wanted to note that they're often the first responders as well, and I'd just like to note we appreciate how they have done that in the past with the fatalities we've had there, and we want to be able to work together sort of moving forward. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well said, thank you, Councillor Coe. Councillor Toll, would you like to speak on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agree with Councillor Keogh on this. We need to get the best outcome for the job. And we can't have another situation where the fatalities down there. But we also need to keep some close financial constraint on this. I don't want you coming back here in 3 years' time, Mr. Gowans, and going, guess what, we've had a blowout. Don't want that to happen, so just keep a tight rein on the purses in the current situation, and it'll be great. Thank you.
Any other councillors?
Can I just seek a clarification on this one? We've gone to an alternative. So we've previously put forward an application for the offset T. So we obviously thought that that was a good treatment or a good solution after the really devastating triple fatality. So can you just clarify, Mr. Gowan, so what shifted from that application to now the position that in fact that's not the solution, there is a better solution? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Phelan, for your question, and it's a really good observation. So the offset T was actually applied for before the triple fatality, and the way spot funding works is that there's a cost benefit ratio applied based upon how many incidents have occurred, whether they be fatalities or serious injuries. And depending upon the history of that location, a cost benefit analysis is applied. And so if, and this sounds really bad, that from an accounting point of view, ultimately, the cost benefit to do the $856,000 offset T was the maximum we could apply for under the previous BCR that was applied to that intersection. With the triple fatality, that's changed the cost benefit ratio. There's an assigned value through the funding scheme for each fatality that occurs at that location, which changes the cost benefit analysis and the amount that you can apply for. So it's a roundabout has always been the better solution, but the offset T was what we could apply for in the first instance before the triple fatality.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? Councillor Tubb.
Thank you, through Mr. Gowans, I feel for you having to explain that BCR that we've got to put, who imposes that, the government? They put a value on lives, so we've got to lose lives to get the best result. I find that's unacceptable, and I don't feel you should have to be in a position where you've got to explain that to the community. I just think it's outrageous. We've got to kill people before we can improve things. I just think it's unacceptable, but thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what I've said, actually. I think it's probably sits in all our minds at the moment. And yeah, I think you explained it pretty well, Mr. Gowans, but shouldn't have to explain it. And it shouldn't come to the loss of lives to be recognised that it needs some serious treatment. It should be done as a preventative thing, not as a proactive thing after we've lost lives. I just asked, taking on from a bit further from Councillor Keogh, that I think a roundabout is certainly the safest option ultimately, providing we can get the funding. I just ask that if we get to that stage, that we do plenty of community consultation, because that's what they've asked for, and their feedback. And we've certainly got some recent narrative about that intersection from people that live down that way, and they see it all the time. They see probably many things that we don't even know about, so they certainly see it. And I just also ask, if we get to the stage where we're going to redesign that intersection either way, we've just got to really keep in mind the absolutely dynamic volume of high weight and and long vehicles, and specifically out of Lacaput there. So it's not just a standard intersection or roundabout. It's much more than that because of the high volume of turning traffic, slower vehicles, heavy vehicles, long vehicles, agricultural machinery. So yeah, I've had some mixed feedback about the roundabout at the intersection of Glenelg Highway and Euromine Road, and whilst I think it certainly does improve safety, I just don't know what community consultation was done there, but anyway. Thank you, all really good discussion. So all those in favour? Thank you. That takes us to item 13, councillor reports and general business. Thanks. Councillor Keogh first, if that's all right, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've all had some amazing Anzac Day services over the last month, and again, just to commend the incredible RSLs, communities or friends of RSL that have put on such wonderful services. I was privileged to be at the Snake Valley Dawn service, again, an incredibly moving service. Then attend the Beaufort one and lay a wreath at the morning service there. Again, just incredible to see from young to old, everyone being involved, and just a very beautiful service again. I was then privileged to attend the Stockyard Hill afternoon service at 3 o'clock. Beautiful avenue there, and we thank council staff supporting that too, and getting that up to scratch with the mowing and everything. It really is just a stunning, a beautiful memorial there. Added to that, later that afternoon, I was also able to attend the Stockyard Hill Church Memorial Service. So when the wind farm was erected there and the old church had to be removed for the offices, they wanted to commemorate the fact that the church was there that had served the community for so long. And there's a beautiful memorial there now, and I would urge anyone to go see it, where there's a beautiful wrought iron entrance sort of representing the entrance to the church, and even pews were made from wrought iron by local Ben Lyons that imitated the pews that they had. So it's almost like this open air chapel, and it's just stunning. And it was designed by a local Alex Bain, who now lives in Melbourne, but grew up there as well. So just an incredible effort everyone put in for a beautiful memorial, and that was very well attended, and people may have seen that in the local Pyrenees Advocate, but it was just such a lovely afternoon. I've also had, again, getting back to fire, speaking of fire, we've had a number of council collaboration meetings, and I've also been down to visit the affected sites and residents, just ensuring some people are very much still in need of support, which is very understandable because of the extent of the damage. There's a few issues we're still working through, but again, I'm blown away by the support people have given each other and the resilience that community has had. Adding to that, I was at the Blaze Aid event yesterday at Bradvale, and again, just an amazing bunch of people. So many of these people who give of themselves that are already giving of themselves in so many other areas. And I do want to have a shout out to the lady Chris, who coordinates all the Blaze Aid volunteers, who actually had an accident Wednesday week back and broke a collarbone, I believe. But Chris couldn't even be there at the event, and she's just put in weeks and weeks of work, and we just give great thanks to people like Chris and all her support team who continue to do such incredible work. So it was a wonderful celebration yesterday. So yeah, just thank you to everyone that's been involved with that. This week coming up, I'll be meeting with Michaela Settle through the Rural Council's Victoria delegation. We'll be definitely advocating on election items from our perspective too. We're very keen to be able to advocate for the water project, for that water sustainability for a great area of our Shire. So looking forward to that, and that's all from me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Toll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, what have we done? We had numerous meetings throughout April with the Victorian Off-Road Motorbike Club, and the Pyrenees Council and our planning department in an effort to get the Mount Misery competition up and away again, which Rachel and the team got it all together, which was unbelievable at the end, and saw 1,400 people turn up, only to be cancelled on the second day due to the weather and couldn't get emergency people in. So that was a bit of a shame, but at least we've got the pathway forward for that. Anzac Day, I put a lot of wreaths out around the ward in the Ursel ward at the schools and whatever, and we had a great little session down at Lexington in the morning, only to be interrupted by a few rattling cans and that, but that issue's been resolved, and hopefully it won't happen again. Then I joined with a few fellow councillors at Pyrenees Unearthed, and seemed to be getting knocks at the door all the time with wines getting delivered, so I don't know what went wrong that day. But that was terrific, it was well attended, and it just showcased our great wineries and whatever there. Good to see some rain for our farming communities getting their crops in, and football, netball well underway. And it's good to see the good crowds turning up despite the rising fuel costs and everything. We're still getting good crowds at the local footy, which keeps our communities going. And tonight, the ESVF fight starts again. There's a great article with Rob Armstrong on it. That's on Australian Story at 8 o'clock. So if anyone's watching, tune into that after this riveting meeting. And you'll see Rob's story there. And let's light the fire and put it under Jacinda again to get rid of this bloody tax. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, Decameron Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As with other councillors, I also attended the Anzac Day services. So I was really pleased to start the morning at Landsborough, and following that go to the gunfire breakfast, and just to see the huge volunteering effort as well that goes into bringing those events together. The dawn service at Moonabel was terrific because it was also combined with the vintage car kind of touring club coming through. So in the beautiful main street of Moonabel, having a dawn service and then being able to look at all of the vintage cars was fabulous. Apart from that, council meetings that all of the councillors have also been to, and I also very much enjoyed Pyrenees Unearthed. Was pleased to be one of the winning bidders in one of the events.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Wardlaw of Acre Ward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to the questions from some members of the community, as Deputy Mayor, the value add to our Shire has been well received, and I have been working hard. I've spent much time out and about, including meeting with Martha Haylett and other councillors at the site of the Stoneleigh intersection to announce funding for improvements, increasing safety for all that travel there. Both the CEO and Mayor were unavailable that day, and I was most happy to go down and have a look. I have to comment though, everything we've spoken about, the amount of trucks and at the turn there and go through there while we were standing there for half an hour was just incredible. So definitely need to spend as much as we possibly can to improve the safety through there. I also attended 2 Anzac Day ceremonies in Avoca, and they were extremely well attended. My 2 little granddaughters brought their Brumby pony along with saddled up and with boots facing backwards, which is it's just in remembrance of the fallen soldiers. So they put the boots on backwards, to recognise the soldiers that have fallen. And he was really well received by all the kids, of course. Following that, I got to join in with a friendly game of 2-Up at the Avoca Hotel. And I'd never played 2-Up before, and that was just so much fun. My donations went to the Avoca RSL. I did not win anything. After that, I attended the Lake Goldsmith Steam Rally, where I received a guided tour with my husband and 2 of my grandsons. It highlighted to me the need for a younger generation to step up and take on some roles of the committee. You know, these gentlemen, they aren't getting any younger, but they've got so much knowledge to share, and you know, I'm looking forward to next time. There was his name's gone from me, but he's got this massive steam engine that he promised to fire up for me next time. He hadn't lit it this time. So I'm looking forward to that in November. In between, I've had the opportunity to run a couple of council briefings. One is a learning opportunity and the other was when the mayor was unavailable. I also attended the summit for the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing bid, where 15 councils united to show support for the bid and the opportunities it offers us all going forward. There's a bit of confusion out there in the out and about that people think that it's going to be bad. You know, it's really all about drawing tourism and actually developing and you know, drawing people to our area. And, you know, we're just one little patch of that, but we can offer accommodation and all that sort of thing moving forward. So we really need to get behind this. And finally, I went to Melbourne with the CEO and the Mayor to advocate to the ministers on items we deem to be of importance. There are many issues we face as a small shire without a growing income stream. So, you know, we can't just make money like other shires who have parking fees and things like that. We don't have any of that. So we have to find income in other ways. And we've got to fight hard to get this income to ensure the growth and prosperity in our shire, including seeking the 5 million for the water that you know, that was one of the things on our agenda. We were talking to the ministers about that. So yeah, lots going on in my department.
Thank you, Councillor Wardlaw. Yeah, I was away, or Sarah and I were away during Anzac Day, so couldn't attend the Beaufort service. So thank you, Councillor Kerr, for laying that wreath for me. That was really appreciated. But we did go to the morning Anzac service at Moama, and it was just fantastic. And you know, they do it the same as we do up here, but it's just really nice to see. And it was well attended by young and old, so ages of all people of all ages. That was really, really good. And they marched down the street, and it was really, really good. So we did make the effort to attend an Anzac service, and apologise that we couldn't be here on that day. Attended the Pyrenees Unearthed Festival with the councillors, and again, it was just a fantastic day and was really well done. And I just think it's probably one of our main events across the Shire, really. And I think it was just fantastic, but I think it's got so much potential, you know, for a whole range of things, and it showcases some of our fine foods and some of our fine wines, which we did sample a couple of, as you would. But it was just a really great day and well attended, and it was a credit to all those people who organised and coordinated that. It was just such well done. I went to the Blaze 8 event yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, Sunday. Yeah, sorry. With Councillor Kerr was there as well, and it was just fantastic. It was really, really well attended. And it was actually to thank them for their service and to celebrate 100 days of them being in our area. So they've been here, in fact, it's about 110 or 118 or something days they've been here working away. So there's 23 volunteers down there at the moment getting up every day to go and help people that are affected by the fire. So, you know, that work is all volunteer. It's just amazing, and they do such an amazing job. And of course, again, it's all volunteers. So without those volunteers, I don't know where we would be. And, you know, it was, I think the gratitude of the farmers was shown by the attendance of there yesterday. It was a really, really well attended. So that's fantastic. Had some constituent meetings, as all councillors probably would. And Wednesday went down to Melbourne to Parliament House with the Deputy Mayor and Mr. Nolan, and we spoke to some politicians down there, which we had arranged. It was a fairly long day, but we spoke with Bev McArthur, who's a member for Western Victoria, and Dr. Sarah Mansfield, who's a senator with the Greens, Emma Keeley, Tim McCurdy and Danny O'Brien from the Nationals, and Vicky Ward and her advisor, who's the Minister for Emergency Services. And we spoke about some pretty consistent things, being the financial sustainability of small rural councils, Pyrenees being one of them, the importance of water projects, as we've already mentioned here earlier on today, and the pipeline project in the north. You know, I couldn't help but highlight to the people down there that it seems unbelievable that in this day and age that towns like Moonabel and some other towns around there haven't got potable water. It seems just unbelievable. So certainly that was highlighted. The roads and roads funding and bridge and all those things, infrastructure funding, road safety, and emergency services, we certainly highlighted that because we've had our fair share of disasters and response to emergencies. In fact, they're ongoing now as we speak. So I think we certainly got our message across, and I thank the CEO and Deputy Mayor for their input as well. Between the three of us, we kept chipping away and we got the message across. And I just hope that some of those members that I've mentioned there have heard what we've had to say, and that's the best we can hope for. So thank you for all of that. That's about it from me. So that brings us to confidential items, item 14. Close the meeting to the public. Pursuant to provisions of section 4.1.1C of Council's governance rules and section 66 of Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will be closed to the public in order to consider confidential items. Can I have someone recommend that? Thank you. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Todd. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll now ask that the recording be stopped. Thanks.